Hello, welcome to another episode of Live Stream Insiders, and there goes the countdown clock. We aim to give you the last week's 7 days worth of live streaming news in the next 30 minutes, including this week. We've got some updates on Twitter, we've got updates on Switcher Studio, we've got an update from Delmondo, we've got a fantastic, really intriguing case study from the UK, which has been featured by the New York Times, bizarrely, and also why engagement is the #1 metric to watch. Hello, wherever you're watching Live Stream Insiders in the world, this is episode 131. I'm Peter Stewart. I'm the author of the Live Streaming Handbook, the very first book all about how to do live streaming anywhere in the world. And my co-host is the inimitable Krishna Day. Hi, Krishna.
Holiday weekend. I know that lots of people have been enjoying great weather. And so if you're catching this, perhaps you're still on the beach, or perhaps you're somewhere where you can't get access to audio. That's the benefit of us doing Facebook Live, because you can catch up on the replay a little bit later on. In case you've never joined us before, we'd like to give a big shout out and a hello to those of you who've joined us here live, and we also love you if you actually watch us on the replay. Peter and I have been together broadcasting for about 3 years, and our passion is bringing you the latest live news, case studies, technology tips and information, so that actually you can integrate live video into your communications. That could be for marketing, social selling, customer support, employee engagement, or even crisis management. My background is all about being with large organizations around digital communications, certainly since 2005. And prior to that, lots of other things I did. And Peter has got an amazing heritage in terms of traditional journalism, but you'll often find him with his mobile phone in hand, live streaming for his organization, which is a major broadcaster. Anyway, enough about us, but that gives you a context about why we are passionate about sharing ideas and tools and technologies for you to use. I'm going to pass it over to Peter to actually tell you about our first story, but coming up a little later on, I'm going to be back with some interesting news that you may or may not have picked up from the big Facebook Developers Conference F8 that happened this year. Also, a quick shout out to those people who are watching who are using Blue Jeans, and particularly to Blue Jeans themselves. Blue Jeans is a platform that we use for our live streams. One of the reasons that we love it is the fact that we get a fantastic HD quality live stream download for us to be able to repurpose. But if you're using Blue Jeans, a feature that is back, it's been here, it's gone away, it's come back again. It's actually, when I'm actually streaming now, I can see comments and I can see who's here, which makes it a lot easier than for me to have to go off to actually look at my mobile phone, particularly as we actually also share this stream onto other pages that Peter and I have. Anyway, if you're using Blue Jeans, watch out for that. That feature seems to be back. Let's keep our fingers crossed that it's back for a little while longer. Anyway, to you, Peter, for our first story.
And thanks for watching wherever you are in the world, live from London on this bank holiday weekend here in the UK. And we're going to be starting off with some news from Delmondo and Switcher Studios that was announced during the F8 Facebook conference over the course of the week. And they've got together, they've done a bit of a merger, they've done a bit of a deal together, and they've come up with some really, really interesting synergies that would make your live stream work like a dream. What they call complete end-to-end process for producing, managing and measuring your live video content on Facebook Live at what they say is an affordable price. So let me just look down here, because they've got several bullet points about what they're going to be integrating from Switcher Studio and also Delmondo as well. And it does sound really, really good, it has to be said. Obviously, there are other solutions are available, and we talk about these virtually every single week. The different platforms, the different concepts, the different companies that help you make your live streams increasingly professional. Now, we'll come to perhaps that a little bit later on, after I've told you what these bullet points are. But for example, you'll be able to add custom graphics and transitions and pre-recorded assets, so videos in other words, and more, and all of that will help, they say, increase your engagement, and we'll come to engagement and how that is a valuable metric a little bit later on. So what they say is you'll be able to create an organisation-wide asset library for all your brand videos, so that everyone within your organisation, whenever they're going live, will be able to use the same logos and maybe the same intro and the same outro and those kinds of things. The animated overlays, maybe it's going to be the fonts for your lower thirds. All of those are going to be corporate and available to everyone in your organisation who's going to be involved with any form of live streaming. And you probably know as much as I do that when you've got other people who are also doing live streaming, who perhaps haven't been through the induction about what to do and how to do it and what to say and where to go, or even something as basic as which way round to hold a phone, if you're going to be doing live streaming from the field, you know, branding is so important, you know, coming from a background from a really big branded, well-recognized media organization as I do. Another feature that they're getting together about with is managing sponsored live videos at scale. So again, custom graphics, custom overlays, and then automatically be able to see the performance of how those videos go in Delmondo, which of course has got all sorts of different metrics and different stats that you'll be able to see one and all about how all those different videos are working. You'll also be able to invite contributors from your organisation into your live stream. Now, this is really interesting because at the moment, very often what happens to be is that you could have someone contributing who isn't part of your company's kind of brand, but this adds in an extra layer of security so that those people won't necessarily be able to broadcast live individually themselves, but they will be able to be a contributor to one of the more formal live streams, which has been originated by somebody else in that organisation. Obviously, that is, as I say, an extra layer of security. So scheduled post is also very good idea, very important, because that tries to ensure that you get more people watching your live stream from the get-go. So with this collaboration between these two big companies, scheduled posts that auto-sync with Facebook's Rights Manager, the branded content tags, and also to extend reach by tagging the guests and the brands that you mention or you're going to be mentioning, so they're more likely to be watching and taking part, and then potentially sharing your live stream to all of their followers, all their friends, followers and fans as well. Yes, streaming in 720 HD to Facebook or other destinations as well. That's the live stream. Also be able to record your live stream in 1080p or 4K. You'll be able to go live on PC and Mac and also iOS and the screen share, so side by side or multi-view, which we've spoken about before on Live Stream Insiders. Let's have a quick look and see some of these other bullet points. See live versus replay data, peak concurrent viewers, and track TV type metrics like average minute audience over your streams. Obviously, it pays to know what is working, what people are most interested in, because even if they're not going to be telling you specifically, you'll be able to see by the metrics, by the data, about when people start falling off, what kinds of things they're more interested in, when their comments are coming through, when you're talking about certain specific things. And also what's really interesting is that live versus the replay data, so you can see where your audience is most likely to be watching you, from where in the world, and what time around the world as well. We'll come to that at another case study a little bit later on. And also other things like, which kind of fits in, the demographics, the consumption habits of people watching the live versus the replay, tracking the optimal length and the time for your live streams, heat maps around the world for viewerships, and a whole stack more. That's quite a lot to kind of get your teeth into, isn't it? And it's all been launched at F8. So this is the collaboration between Delmondo, as you can see, they're the people behind an awful lot of the stats, from live streaming, and also Switcher Studio. So they're the people very often behind the logos, the lower thirds, and the picture-in-picture and the pre-recorded assets being played into a live stream that we've talked about, and certainly I use during some of my live streams as well. Really interesting collaboration. As I say, different stats companies and different platforms that do some of that techie stuff are available, but it's really interesting to see those two big companies getting into bed together and producing a baby which seems to be going places. Really interesting kind of stuff to be starting off Live Stream Insiders episode 131 with.
Really interesting, isn't it, in terms of those developments? I know a lot of people that you and I know, Peter, use Switcher Studio and are big fans of that because particularly it's mobile live streaming. And I think that's great that they actually now have got some resources there for enterprises as well. One of the organisations that we've been talking about a lot more, in fact, in the last number of months, is Twitter Live. There was a period of time a few months ago that we actually often didn't mention Twitter or Periscope, but Twitter has got some huge news this week, and that's about the fact that they've announced over 30 premium video content deals. And that was announced at the digital content event Newsfronts. Now, all of the resources and links that we talk about will be posted, and you'll get access to them as soon as the show is over. I've actually got 3 accompanying articles related to this, and I'm actually going to read just from one. One notable organisation, which I know that many of you will know and love, is Disney. That's just one of the brands that they're partnering with. But this announcement came out on the 30th of April, and they said Twitter is actually the place that you see things first. And at the digital content Newsfronts, they actually said that they've got a new series of live and original video programming, presenting advertisers with more powerful opportunities to connect with content tied to relevant and engaging cultural moments. There's 30 different collaborations that they talk about, and they said that it's actually our superpower to be able to connect to people to things that are happening live. They actually said that the daily video views have nearly doubled in this last year, and they said adding content has actually made a difference, both from live and also on-demand programming, and that might be new shows, it could be games, it could be events as well. Just a few organisations who are referenced here. I'm just going to give you the absolute cliff notes because the announcement goes on for several pages. But Ellen Digital Studios, Live Nation Concert Series, Hearst Magazines, Viacom, MTV, BuzzFeed News, Vice News, they're just a few of them. ESPN Sports Center Live, Fantasy Focus Live, Formula One, and the Bleacher Report, and as I mentioned also in terms of the partnership there with Disney as well. Quite amazing in terms of, I would never have anticipated this is where Twitter video would be going and Twitter live video would be going. But they're also partnering with original content creators as well. So some big names in terms of influencers, in terms of who are publishing content there. And they said that actually they've actually got, in fact, what also caught my attention was they've got this live brand studio. So if you're partnering, you're working with some big brands. So I know that some of the people who watch this show are, working in agencies. If that's you and you're working with big brands, you might want to have a conversation with your account manager over at Twitter around Twitter video, because they said there's a live brand studio, and that's what really potentially caught my attention. I always love it when organizations put together additional resources to help brands and businesses. And they said this is a new service designed to help brands maximize their own live content efforts. Twitter's full service team will work with brands to determine the best content to showcase, develop a media plan that targets the right audience, and provide dedicated technical support, tools to share show clips. That's really interesting. Sharing a little bit of your show to actually bring in more of an audience, and real-time analytics plus more. So as I said, if you are working for an agency or if you are with a big brand and you've been experimenting with video and you've been experimenting with Twitter, I definitely think it's worthwhile a conversation with your Twitter colleagues in terms of whoever is responsible in the Twitter team for your part of your business, and ask them about the live brand studio. I'm sure this won't be applying to little people like me, but I'm really excited because people like, you know, Peter's organization, a big global news organization, this is perfect for them. I'm sure there's already conversations that have been had in terms of what they might be doing, because obviously they've got to have a balance between what they're publishing on social platforms and obviously, you know, what they're publishing on their own many, I don't even know if it's hundreds of channels that his organization has. So pretty exciting news there from Twitter.
Live Stream Insiders, episode 131 of our weekly show, which gives you some idea of how keen we are on everything to do with live streaming, that we are well into our third year. And hi to you for watching, Patricia and Bobo, and also Pierre Philippe and Stephen as well. Really appreciate you watching live, and also if you're watching the replay as well. What we love to do is, yes, talk about the tech and yes, the updates, but also bring you some case studies. And what we often say is never actually just look at a case study and think, well, that's not my niche, it's not my area, it's a different part of the world, or they're selling something that I don't sell. What it is to give you an idea, a little bit of inspiration, a bit of a nudge in the right direction. And what we can perhaps suggest to you is that you merge, you mesh, you gel all sorts of some of the ideas that we're giving you with what you already know about your particular area, your business, your niche, your target audience and their needs. And therefore, it may possibly be that you can come up with something which is better than what you're doing already, or potentially to pitch an idea to somebody else that you could be working for, because it's not necessarily stuff that you're doing for yourself, your own business, but it may be that you're trying to strike out and do some live streams as part of your own business for other people's businesses and sell yourself as a bit of an expert, a bit of a live stream marketer for those other businesses. And it could be that maybe some of the ideas or some of the stats that we come up with may help you in that. And if that is the case, we'd love to hear from you. So we've got a couple of case studies. The first one from me this week is all about engagement, and one particular article that was publicised and written in aftermark.com this week about how engagement is perhaps, well, they say, the #1 metric to watch. And they're talking about that they start off by saying live video, the new driving force in digital marketing, and an interesting stat that by 2021 they claim the live video streaming industry is set to explode from $30 billion to $70 billion between 2016 and, as I say, 2021. And that's a huge opportunity for brands, for businesses, whether it be large or small, to find new customers, not necessarily locally, but elsewhere around the world. They come up with some bullet points, some of the stuff that we know already, of course, about how live video is accessible, personal, interactive, and it provokes a sense of urgency and excitement as well. And they use the one-line kind of example. Even Elon Musk realized the great potential of live streaming video when he streamed the launch of his Tesla Roadster into outer space recently. So essentially, Elon Musk using it as his own TV station. Mind you, he's got the money to buy a TV station anyway, hasn't he? But using live streaming as a simple way to do that. So at its core, this article is talking about live streaming, is the power and potential of live streaming, which comes down to, well, human interaction. That's really what we've got, and what we've got going on here on our show, and probably what you've got going on in your show as well. And that human interaction is the way that you build a relationship and you build engagement. And they're talking about how increasing engagement is all important. They've come up with a case study from Sharumba, who's an Israeli cosmetics seller who's been able to use live streaming video, particularly on Facebook, to increase her sales by up to 86%. And what she does is one of the oldest tricks in the book, nothing that we talk about very often on the programme, but I remember it's one of the earliest examples examples that I heard from the live streaming world, from Periscope, probably in the back end of 2015 when people were talking about that, and certainly it's in the book as well, my live streaming handbook, and that is offering time-limited offers during your broadcast, because that gives an incentive for people to engage, that call to action. You're spurring people in to do something specifically. That time-limited offer may be just during the length of your broadcast or something that ends soon afterwards. That's one example from this particular feature from aftermark.com. And also they're talking about know your audience, and Sharumba knows her audience, selling those cosmetics, selling the beauty aids to people like, for example, young mothers. So she's able to do her program when they are most available to watch. So she airs her videos around about 9 p.m. at night, when she reckons that those people who'll be targeted will be most interested in the subject matter in her particular niche are going to be available to watch. It kind of makes sense, doesn't it, really? And also to make a Facebook event and asking people what more products they would like her to be talking about and showing and selling. Again, that makes more sense, doesn't it? To actually be asking people what they want you to do so you can do it, so they are going to have their needs fulfilled and satisfied. And also, of course, it's another way to entice more people to actually watch and to be engaged. The article has a lovely quote. I like this. Engagement only occurs if the right audience is engaged. Couple of other good bullet points from this particular case study. Plan ahead and make impact. Questions they say to ask yourself: where and when should I be promoting the broadcast? So many live streams are not promoted, even ones that have a radio station or a TV station or other social media attached to them, and they don't actually use those other platforms to promote their Facebook Live or their Periscope or their Instagram Live or their YouTube. Boy, oh boy, it makes me want to slap my forehead. Number two, is the content I'm producing consistent with my brand? Again, I mentioned it a few minutes ago, something which doesn't happen even with some of the big well-known broadcasters. Just because a Facebook Live is easy to do, it's also easy to get so wrong. And because it is shared more often and gives a further reach by the likes of Facebook, that just means more people are seeing you screw up your brand. Not a good move, people. Number three, what structure should the broadcast follow? So again, have you actually trained yourself or others in having a beginning, a middle and an end? What are you going to actually be saying? Number four, will I give demos of my product? And also I would say, is that product actually going to work? And if it doesn't work when it comes to that red light blinking in the corner of the screen, what are you going to do? How are you going to get out of it? Number five, what would make the audience feel included? How to ask those more engaged questions, how to get people to write and comment and to love and to click on that screen, and what story am I trying to tell or sell? It's all about engaging the audience, having a bit of repartee, having a relationship, having that sense of urgency as well, maybe offering incentives to your live audience and having some kind of a call to action to convert, I would say, that engagement actually into sales. Oh, and don't forget those really good visuals as well. Finally, I'll leave you with this final metric, which they say marketers no longer have the option of ignoring live video. They claim nearly 95% of marketing executives agree that live streaming video is now an important part of their marketing strategy. You can see the source of that quote, that fact, and also the rest of that case study at aftermark.com. Don't hunt it out. Just wait for a whole list of notes which Krishna will be providing on our website a little bit later on, and you'll be able to click through and see for yourself.
It's great to see that article from the team at Aftermark, who certainly I know the guys there. And interesting, Peter, when they were referencing that case study, because we actually covered it on Live Stream Insiders. And so it's always good to remind people of, as you said, a lot of these things are common sense if you've been in communications and marketing for some time. But I think the key thing in terms of what I'm seeing with live video, lots of people are coming to these platforms without having had that marketing experience. So that's why it's always helpful to go through that. An interesting article, I don't know if you actually saw it, Peter, and I've shared it over on Twitter. We might get to it next week. It's not just about how brands can use it. We've talked about how musicians can use live video. We've talked about how people in medical situations can use live video, how it can be used for crisis communications. And the one thing that I saw this week, Peter, I don't know if you saw it, which was about how the world leaders are using Facebook for communications. And specifically, I just pulled out of the report all the information about how they've been using Facebook Live. So we might have a look at that if there's other stories next time. But if in the meantime, if you want a quick link to it, head on over to my Twitter account. But I think that might be interesting for you as well, Peter, given the fact that you, for your organisation, actually works with with a lot of world leaders too, and you're covering them in your reports. So let's turn our attention now back over to Facebook. And what I'm going to be talking about now are 3 quick things that have come up in terms of that caught my attention, specifically around live video, that came up from the developers conference, Facebook developers conference this week, F8. In our notes, I've also linked there the video that I watched. So I kind of scanned through one of the major pieces of video content there to actually pick up these tips for you. So I've given you a link to that if you want to go and listen to all of it. But I'm really interested in terms of if you have been following what went on with F8, and particularly in terms of are there things that you actually came up with that you're really excited about, because there are so many different areas. We're just going to look at live video because that's what we do here on Livestream Insiders. So let's take a look at some things that actually you may have already seen and you might be excited about. I'd love to have your thoughts. Let us know in the comments. So the first one that I picked up was about Facebook groups. So there was a huge update being made for Facebook groups and making it easier for us to find and connect. And definitely it was really interesting watching the video from F8, where they were talking about groups that they've learnt from in terms of and how they've been talking to people who've got 1 million people in their groups and what it means for them to actually connect with the people who are in those groups. So that was really interesting about where they've been seeking feedback about what would make it easier for group owners, group moderators to be able to work with their communities. And particularly in terms of what we need to watch out for is there's going to be a new way for us to easily find and connect into groups. But one of the things that we talked about a few months ago that I know that some of you who are watching have had access to, and that's Facebook Watch Party, which allows you to actually share video content and actually pre-organize what that video content is in your group, and then encourage people to come along and participate and watch it at the same time. So that's actually called Facebook Watch Party. Well, one of the things that they said is that's going to be rolling out. They didn't say everybody would get it, but they said it's actually going to be, rolling out to a lot more people now. And they said in a community, you can make new friends who share your values. That might be a support group for new parents. It might be, for people in terms of medical condition that you've got. It might be just to come together and volunteer. I am participating in a lot of groups related to products. So it doesn't matter what that product is, but actually I'm seeing a lot of organisations have a Facebook group as a platform to connect with. Now, here's a little bit of a word of warning from me, is don't only rely on Facebook as the place that you're going to connect with people, because I've also seen, and I've mentioned this on Livestream Insiders a few weeks ago as well, people posting in a group saying, I don't want to be on Facebook anymore for all the reasons around privacy and so on. I actually want to know, do you have another place that we can connect? So that's just a health warning. Don't just rely on one platform to connect with your community. But anyway, they said that actually 1.4 billion people on Facebook are using groups every single month, and 200 million or so of the groups are actually deemed as being meaningful groups. So the thing that really caught my attention was, I'm going to just show you this screen again, was within the watch party. So this is where I said you can watch content alongside other members of your group. Well, there's actually going to be a new feature, and when I watched the video, it was talking about it's going to be available to the owner of the group, I'm guessing moderators, and there might be also some other governance there about other people who can participate in this. But there's a way that you can have live commenting. So you could be watching something together as a group, as a community, and actually have somebody live comment alongside it. So that's called live commenting. So watch out for Watch Party being available in your group, and then also see if you've got access to live commenting. So that's the first thing that caught my attention. As I said, I know a number of you here are actually managing groups where you've been actually testing out Watch Party already. The next one was about live video chat on Instagram in the direct message area. So what you can see here is, let's say on the right-hand side, the information in terms of a chat that's going on, a private chat that's going on, and on the left-hand side is what that live video chat will look like. And it's going to be really easy for us to be able to start this. You actually be able to go to the top of your stream for your direct message thread, and then you can chat in a small group or just one-to-one. This for me makes a lot of sense. If you think about the audience that is on Instagram, and I know that, you know, my 3 teens, they're all on Instagram, they're also on Snapchat. They use Facebook Messenger, but they typically don't have Facebook as an app, you know, installed on their mobile device. However, they actually do connect and have conversations on Instagram. And for me, it makes a lot of sense for Instagram to do this, be able to actually have more time and attention of people spending time on the platforms that they're choosing to be in. In terms of what it means for us as marketers, if we're actually have got a brand channel, that wasn't clear to me. If you know the answer, please let me know in the comments. But it didn't say that actually this was going to be available, because some of us have moved our accounts over to business accounts. So will it mean that we can still do that live video chat with people who are actually connected to us there? That could be really powerful in terms of, let's say, for customer support, and let's say working with influencers that you've actually got in terms of supporting your brand. So it wasn't clear if this feature is also going to be available to those of us who've made our Instagram accounts business accounts. That's just one to watch out for. But I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of having that live video chat in your direct messages directly on Instagram. The third platform that they talked about that I picked up that I think you might be interested in, some of you I know are big users of WhatsApp. And so what they announced is that WhatsApp users are going to have access to group live video calls. And when I watched the replay back of that event on from F8, there was a bit of a cheer in the audience. So I think that's been something that many people have looked out for some time. So if you're using WhatsApp, watch out for that. So they were the 3 things that caught my attention relating to live video. There was lots of other video stories around F8 as well, and there's lots of great archived content around that as well that you might want to check out. If you follow me on Google+, you actually see that I've actually posted a few of the archives over there, as much for me to remember to go back to and watch. I haven't had time to watch everything in terms of watching those replays. My last story that I've got for you today in terms of our technology update is that in terms of relating to another live video platform. Last time we talked about all of the updates that are coming to vMix. This time I just want to give you a quick heads up in terms of updates that are coming to Wirecast. Now, one thing that you might want to check out, I certainly wasn't aware of, I hadn't been paying attention to their pricing, but now they've actually gone to the same model as Camtasia has, TechSmith has, where you can have a subscription for a year to their product, and you'll get then all the updates. So if you've got version 8 of Wirecast, I think these versions, all these updates are going to be available to you. So in Wirecast 9, there's a number of features that are being announced, but the one that actually was of interest to me from a live video perspective for Facebook was the fact that they've actually got a new way for actually us to be able to actually share content over onto for Wirecast over onto Facebook Live. And so in the back end of Wirecast, what you will be able to do is set up a code that you would then give to your Wirecast video producer. And I think this is really helpful because it means that you don't have to give over any of the details of your Facebook account and your Facebook page to that person. Now, of course, there are different ways you can have people contributing to your page, but I think from a kind of a smoothness in terms of your production flow, this might make a lot of sense for organizations where basically there's a code that can be given and then that person will be able to then stream live. So this is the first time I've seen any of the platforms introduce this. So I really like this update. So it's an easy way for people to stream to your Facebook page. You're going to give them a specific code, then they're going to not have to use your credentials in terms of accessing your Facebook page. But do check out what it means if you've got an older version of Wirecast, let's say Wirecast 7, in terms of their new pricing models. As I said, I hadn't picked up this change. I'm not sure how long it has been in place, but it's something that was mentioned in the recorded video that I was watching about Wirecast 9 updates. I say, pretty exciting update there for those of you who are using Wirecast or your production team is using Wirecast to stream your live video over onto Facebook.
Absolutely. More good tech advice and tips and updates there from Krishna as usual. And I've got one more final case study before we bring this week's episode 131 to a close. And it comes from a couple of schoolboys from Berkshire, just to the west of London here in England. In fact, Berkshire is the county where Windsor Castle is, where there's going to be a certain wedding in the next few days. But anyway, we're talking about Luke Pritchard and Johnny Laxton. They were 13 and they were together at boarding school, and they decided that they'd set up a little YouTube channel which they called College Music to promote the videos and the stars and the artists and the songs that they particularly liked. Now, that was back in 2011. Fast forward a few years, and now they've got 334,000 subscribers, and they make around about £5,000 a month from their streams. Well, how is this? Because what they do is they stream music non-stop with videos that combine the playlists of the songs they like, these different kinds of songs, more underground, more indie labels and so on, with short looped animations, the animes, kind of little GIFs and so on. Often made from films without copyright, it has to be said. And apparently the users really do insist on the extras, not just the videos of the actual recorded artist, but also these little GIFs, these little animes, and they get very upset when they're taken down. Sometimes they are taken down for copyright reasons, and of course if that happens once too often, then the whole of your channel can be taken down. So it has to be said that these YouTubers, and there's a growing number of them that have these kinds of channels, they do trade a bit of a grey line, a thin line, a precarious space between the YouTube algorithms and the copyright, which is generally understood around the world. So that's that kind of fine line that they're treading there, but they are getting more and more subscribers. They are making more and more money because of the number of subscribers, of course. It's much more difficult to break into the market now, these guys are now saying. They're into their early 20s, of course. It's much more difficult to get in, to break through. They're much more longer established than many of the others. And a lovely quote that we got from this particular article, the link of which you'll be able to see a little bit later on when the notes are produced. Interestingly, this has come from the New York Times, so newyorktimes.com. Live streams like theirs succeed in part by exploiting user behaviour. According to channel operators, YouTube users often click off a video after several minutes before a clip has actually concluded. They get the gist of it. But users who listen to live streams, brackets, a bit like Spotify, I guess, tend to play them for half an hour or more, often as background music. Stands to reason, doesn't it? Kind of fits in with what we know already. That boosts the video's retention rates, which compels YouTube to promote them much more widely than any other. other video. As I say, much more difficult to break through at the moment. The number of live channels that stream daily has quadrupled over year on year since 2016. So boy, oh boy, quadrupled in the last year, 18 months or so. But these guys have broken through the market. One of them is now at university. The other one is actually trying to promote the channel more and more. They're hoping to make it much more of a business. 300,000 subscribers, $5,000 a month. It's not breaking all sorts of records, but it's getting on the right track, isn't it? And boy, oh boy, not many people will be turning up their nose at $5,000 a month, even if it is split two ways. And of course, you've always got that possibility of copyright infringement, that rug being pulled from under your live stream feed, and the whole deck of cards crashing around your ears and your channel being closed down. I was going to say at a moment's notice, probably with no notice at all. Bit of a gamble, seems to be paying off for these guys at the moment, though.
You know, Peter, I've seen that being used, those kind of streams, and it was really interesting that that was a case study from the UK. I actually have seen a lot of people doing similar things in other parts of the world, and I've actually seen people, let's say, at events, when they've actually looked for some background music, because it's kind of, you know, it is that background music, it is quite subtle, it's not offensive, and actually being used, for example, you know, in a break. And I've seen one very big, very well-known digital organization use that kind of stream in terms of, in their events that they're doing, you know, just as the delegates are going off for coffee. The other place I've seen it be used, I've come across them, was actually with my daughters. Those of you who know me will know I've got 3 teens, and they actually have come across it because it's being used for revision. I don't know that I can necessarily personally revise with background music, but there's a lot of teens who are actually using it in that way. So if you just want that subtle background, you know, you can go back and look at the stream there. You can see the names of the content. And if you check the article, you'll be able to also see that as well.
And also, I love the idea of putting the other video tracks in as well. So that gives something to people to listen to, but also to view as well. And that reminds me, boy, oh boy, I'm going back about 20 years now. I don't think they're still around, but there was a restaurant chain in the UK called Chicago Rock Cafe. And they would do just that. They would have the video screen up, and they were playing the hits of the day, but also overlaid over the top were, well, I suppose they're called GIFs now. I'm not sure what they were called 20 years ago, probably a bit more than 20 years ago, actually. Little clips of TV programs, little clips of films, little clips of kind of bloopers, of outtakes of home videos, that kind of thing, as well as clips of the videos of the artists who were singing as well. That seems to be the kind of thing that these guys are doing. So really, really interesting stuff. Also interesting is being picked up by the New York Times for something that's happening about 40 or 50 miles away from where I'm sitting at the moment.
So 2 quick things for me to end on. One is an article from my friend Stephanie. Actually, it was a video where she was interviewed, and just back to that story that we had earlier on that Peter talked about in terms of engagement and actually what to do in terms of getting more engagement on your Facebook live streams. And so in this particular case, there was a little video, about 10 minutes, really worthwhile you watching. And in terms of Stephanie, Lou talks about how she's using live video. Now, this is a precursor in terms of a little video that was being done prior to an event that's going on. So she's been interviewed, that you see this in this image here, by the person who actually is hosting the event. And she actually goes through some tips. And these really reinforce what Peter was talking about before. What I felt was really interesting is I know that some people think that they have to go live every single day. And what Stephanie talks about is how she's going live, you know, a few times a month, and it's paying off. So I know there's great Facebook Live challenges saying go live every day for the month. That's really tough for a lot of people to do. And it's all about what's relevant for you, for your skill set, your time, and also, if you're doing it from a business perspective, what's relevant for your business. So there might be a good reason that you go live every single day, let's say up to a live event that you're doing. You're trying to drive ticket subscriptions. In this case, Stephanie's using it. She's got, as she describes it, a boutique agency. It's her and a couple of people. She doesn't need to be overwhelmed with the amount of work that she's got. She just wants to have enough work for the 3 of them to be doing it. And there were basically 3 things that she talked about. As Peter said before, have a promotional strategy. So one of the reasons that she doesn't do live video every single day is actually allows her the time to be able to promote it. If you have got an opportunity to do it consistently at the same time every week, that obviously helps. Not everybody has got that ability like Peter and I, or always live at the same time every single Sunday. However, in her case, she's able to use that time to be able to pre-promote that content. Drive traffic before was the second thing she was saying, is actually, use all the different options you've got. And she talks, interestingly, in her in her recorded video that she did about how she was using Facebook events. Facebook events work for some people, not everybody, but she actually was able to get people who had already been interested in one Facebook event to, in terms of one particular content, to then come back. Now, obviously, you need to work out if Facebook events are going to work for you. And then the other thing is drive traffic after. That's the thing that you don't see that we do behind the scenes in terms of at the end of the show. At the end of the show, I'm probably busy for about another hour and a half to 2 hours where I'm actually downloading the video, editing if it needs editing, then getting it formatted, getting it up onto, edited a version of it onto YouTube, putting other content together so we can cross-promote it onto other places. So it depends what your goals are. Peter and I have got specific goals, and we've got a specific way that we want to do this, as has Stephanie. I just think it's a great 10-minute little interview with somebody giving a sense of what they're doing. It's definitely worth a watch. And so that's from Stephanie Liu over at Lights Camera Live, and I really appreciate her sharing with people that little video as well. And the last thing that we also just want to mention is, if you have not booked your tickets to go to Mojofest, where you're going to be able to see Peter in action. He's actually on a panel all about live video. I've been asked to moderate that panel. And there's lots of other content going on over 3 days. You could just go for 1 day if you wish to. It's taking place in Galway at the end of this month. There's still an opportunity to buy tickets. I don't believe it's being live streamed. Of course, we'll let you know if it is. And so Mojofest is in association with RTE, Ireland's national broadcaster. It's going to be a great programme of content, particularly if you're interested in video content creation, for, say, for documentaries or filmmaking. That's really the first day. But it's also really relevant for people who are journalists like Peter, in terms of if you actually want to look at how do you use your mobile device to produce content for your channels, in terms of whatever they might be, both social and traditional channels as well. And so there's lots of learning, lots of great conversations that happen. Don't miss out on the opportunity. It's a fantastic event. I've enjoyed it for the last 2 times that I've been. It's one of the best conferences that I've attended in the digital world, I have to say, just partly because of the community and the collaboration. So we hope that we're going to see you there at Mojofest at the end of this month.
Absolutely. One of those conferences that you go to and you actually learn something, rather than you're sitting there thinking, boy, oh boy, it's just people on the stage who are just talking about the subject and talking around it. People are actually coming up with some real usable bullet points that you can, well, first of all, take away, but also you can go up and ask them about afterwards. You can buy the gear that they're talking about. You can pump them for more information over coffee and croissants and that kind of thing. You can meet them in the bar afterwards. It is actually a really, really useful conference and get together and networking event. Okay, that is it. Episode 131 of Live Stream Insiders. Boy, oh boy, what have we covered this week? We've covered updates to Twitter, and we've talked about Switcher Studio and Delmondo as well. We've talked about Facebook Live as one of the platforms. We've talked about YouTube as another platform. We've talked about the Mojo Festival as well. We've given you in depth a couple of looks at 2 different case studies. We've talked about presentation and production and promotion tips as well, all in the last 40 minutes or so. It's what we do here on Live Stream Insiders. It has to be said, we kind of divide up our expertise a little bit. Krishna is so much the techie person, what goes on underneath the bonnet, about those codes and the streaming codes and the different platforms and how they work and what you need to do to integrate those with your marketing goals. Noel, and I'm perhaps coming more from a presentation and a production and a promotion point of view, and together we kind of merge together on a Sunday night here from 7 o'clock on live stream Insiders and bring it all together for you. What we say is it's the last 7 days of live streaming news in round about 30 to 40 minutes at this time every week. Thank you so much indeed for the loan of your eyes and your ears over the last little while. Whether you're watching live or whether you're watching the replay, we really appreciate it. Have a great 7 days and happy live streaming. We'll speak to you next Sunday night from 7 UK and Ireland time. Bye-bye for now.